how do you implement the sales bit? How do you get your first deal? How do you get going? We've got a fun episode for you today. Andrew, the editor of the podcast, is coming out of the background and he is on the show because he started a side hustle trading. And we have Stephen back from the last episode to coach him in how to get you going. How do you buy stuff? How do you sell it? How do you find the opportunities? And how do you ship it? This is a really fun episode. As you listen along, think about how you can start trading more within your business and how you can apply these principles to get you even further. Right at the end of the episode, Stephen unfortunately dropped off due to an electrical storm in his area, so you will miss him for the summary. But this episode is designed to get you going and taking action. The extraordinary belongs to those that create it. Rebelling against business plans and debt, rebelling against what society expects of us to build cool businesses, make money, have fun, and do good. Let's create something extraordinary together. Welcome to The Rebel Entrepreneur. Welcome to The Rebel Entrepreneur. I'm very excited about this episode. It is one of our coaching episodes, and we have two people on the call right now. We have Andrew, who you've never heard on the podcast before, but he's silently in the background of every episode because Andrew is the editor of The Rebel Entrepreneur, who has started a side hustle business, which I love that. Welcome to the show, Andrew.
Thank you. Yes, just love just sitting in the corner, listening to all the goings-ons. It's been a good time.
You are somewhat of a stalker of the show, aren't you?
Yeah. I guess that's the polite way of putting it, right?
Well, thank you for making me sound good on the episodes and removing all my ums, ahs, and bad sentences. I really appreciate it.
You know, anything for you, Alan. I do my best.
And we also have Stephen, who came on the last episode. He's built an incredible business flipping and buying products. And actually, well, welcome to the show, Stephen. Welcome back to The Rebel Entrepreneur.
Thanks for having me again.
I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be fun. So, Andrew, tell us what you've been up to. Where are you? How did this start?
So a couple months ago, I want to say three months ago, I got it in my head. I had just kind of been scrolling on Facebook, Marketplace, Craigslist, and different sites that you can buy and sell stuff on. And I sort of got in my head when I saw people just listing all this free stuff. I was like, well, that's kind of weird. It seems like you get something for it, right? So I thought, okay, I don't want to go get this item and then be sitting with it. So what if I took a screenshot of an item that was for free on one thing, and then I listed it for sale on another site like Facebook and see if I could get any money for it. And so I saw a chair that somebody was just throwing out, and then I I saw it on Craigslist for free, and then I listed it on Facebook Marketplace for $80 just to see what would happen. I didn't even have the chair yet. I just wanted to see what would happen. And I got a bite, and they're like, yeah, I'm interested in this chair. And that was the first kind of oh, maybe there's something here. Maybe I could make some money off of this. I ended up actually taking a lot longer to sell that one item, but the idea was kind of set in place, I guess, for me.
So you had the idea. Did you actually sell that chair? What happened with that chair?
Yeah. So my idea was that initially I would just pick it up and then just go drop it off at the place. And I did, but when I dropped it off, the person didn't want it. So there was a little bit of error of calculation in my part there. But a couple of weeks later, I was able to sell it. Yeah. So it all worked out eventually, but it just took a little bit longer. I did have to hold into it in my apartment. So,
Did you sit on it?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, it was a great chair, solid. I did have to fix the lever on it. So there was that, but that
so
cost
you did add some value.
Yeah, I added some value. Put in $5-10 into it and then sold it for $40. It worked out, I guess.
And that inspired the second deal. Did you do a second deal?
Yeah, so that inspired a slew of deals, I suppose. I then found a couple more things for free. I found somebody was throwing away a dresser, and that one I don't think I got as much out of because I put a lot of work into it, refurbishing it. I mean, I still made profit, but I don't think it ended up being worth what I sold it for. So I think I got it for free, and then I put in new pieces of hardware, and I bought like a sander for it to like kind of sand it down, and then I already had some stains, so that was that. So I think I put in about $80 to it, and I sold it for $150. So it wasn't as good if you count in my time.
Yes, but you did get a sander which you can use on deals coming up.
Exactly. And so that was another thing. Like when there's a project, I like to build on my collection of tools. So if there's like a tool that I can get, it almost feels like, I'm getting it for free once I sell the item. And then I got a wood chipper for free. Someone was just giving away, and I just gave the carbs a little tune up, a little cleaner. And that thing was running fine. I put on the listing as like disclaimer, you'll need to sharpen the blade, but I made $200 off of that for like almost no cost. I got overhead. Is that what you would call that? I don't know.
I guess no expenses. It's not very often that you get given a product to sell.
Right.
It's not very often, but happens occasionally. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Stephen, any thoughts so far?
Yeah, I mean, what I'm hearing is what you were finding is, and the key to it is motivated sellers. And they're not even sellers. They're just, reason people are willing to give it to you is they want it out of their house or out of their garage. And they're willing to give it to you for free, even though it has value, because people have different motivations. Like sometimes their wife is in their ear and saying, get this, clean out the garage, I don't want it in here, or vice versa. Or it could be like, hey, I just want this gone. I've got to move in. I'm buying a new car and I don't have room in the garage to fit it. Like this chipper, I haven't used it in 2 years. Like it's got to go today. And so like, yeah, I could get $50 or $200, but like they have something that's more important that they want to put in that space or time or whatever. They don't want people coming to their house, perhaps like during COVID. They don't want a bunch of people like coming and wasting their time. Like, so there's different motivations why people would do it, and they do it all the time. I mean, every day there's listings like crazy. That's one of the girls that works for me here. She just found, like probably 3 weeks ago, found one of the heaters that go out on like patios of restaurants, the ones that stand up like a little tower.
Oh yeah.
And somebody just left it at the curb. So she threw it in the back of her vehicle, and she just sold it for $75 yesterday. Didn't do anything to it, And it's like, it's like, oh, okay, there's $75. Like we always joke and say, when was the last time you stepped over a $75 bill or a $50 bill? I was like, would you do it? Like, no, you've been down to pick it up, throw it in the truck. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I like the idea that you just cross-posted it, because it is like, that is something that like when someone's used to, putting something on their site of choice, whether it's Craigslist or Facebook, whatever, like it actually takes quite a bit of like focus and time to put it on the different sites, like, and so a lot of times people are just going to put it on Facebook or just going to put it on Craigslist and not think, to put it on LetGo or Offer, any of the other ones. And so I like your idea of cross-posting it. The only dangerous part is like, hey, sometimes that free stuff goes really fast. And if you don't have it in hand, then you can waste your time of like, once someone bites. But I think that was more of like testing the waters, which is great, right? Like, right. So you didn't invest any time or money on the front end.
Yeah, I figured it would only be my own time that I was wasting. I mean, I guess a little bit of like the buyer, because I might have had been like, oh, sorry, it got snatched up already.
Yeah.
Sold. That was like the worst possible outcome in my mind, was that like, yeah.
Yeah, but they wasted an email, so it's not a big deal. But
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that's classic like arbitrage. I know people do that. Like there's a whole industry out there that takes stuff that like goes on sale at Walmart and Target and like cross posts it on eBay or Amazon or something like that and buys it and sell it. Like, I don't know what that is, but it's called like Amazon arbitrage. And there's like tons of software and online resources for that sort of thing. I don't really, I know people make money doing it. It's an industry, but it doesn't really appeal to me. Like, just didn't get my juices flowing really. But it's a way to make money without having to take the inventory or, actually even ship anything. Like you take their pictures off of it and cross post it and someone buys it.
I think that was kind of like the draw to me, was that like, since I do have a full-time job, I wanted to not have to put too much work into something. But yeah, sometimes it's like the flip is more interesting, and I'll put like 10 hours or something total into it if it's really interesting. But most of the time I just want to like, hour minimum. That's kind of like, like the hour maximum, I guess. That's how much like I want to put into it, and then just be able to get rid of it while still I think doubling is where I like shoot for, trying to double my profit.
Yeah.
But if I get it for free, hey, yeah, that's
then your return is infinite, right? So
Yeah,
that was
exactly.
one of the things I was going to mention is like, to set your acceptable, allowable, return. Like, so yeah, I want to double my money and only spend 1 hour on each of these items. Like if I have to spend more than an hour and I'm only doubling my money, like, but like if I'm tripling it or, maybe tie it to your time. So like for every hour you have to double, 2 hours you have to triple, 3 hours you have to quadruple,
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah,
that
that's very true.
build something in like that,
Yeah. I think right now I've been doing this for probably 3 months or so, and I've made about $800-900. So it's not like a huge return, but I guess, is there in your mind a business strategy here or something that I could pursue with this?
Yeah, I mean, you're doing it right. I mean, making $800 on it isn't like didn't change your life, like set you on a path to easy street, really, but like it's still a significant amount of money with something you're doing in your spare time, and it didn't take tons and tons of your time at all. And it sounds like you like doing it, and so like to me,
I do like doing it.
It's a win-win,
Yeah, I would say like probably the drawback is just like I live in an apartment with a roommate, and probably just having the stuff isn't great for him.
Yeah,
like sitting out, hanging around in like our living room. I got like dressers and all this kind of power tool equipment stuff.
So what I'd say to that is like, okay, what happens if? How long have you been doing it? Like a month or 2 months?
Yeah, 3 months right now.
3 months. Okay. So if you would have, gotten a small storage unit somewhere local to you that cost you $75 a month, you'd still be ahead and you wouldn't have to live with any of it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like at some point where you start gathering enough stuff, you could either find someone nearby that has a garage with some space or a basement or something, or have a small storage unit somewhere that you keep your stock, or, you start specializing in stuff that's small. Hey, like I'm going to do stuff that's just small scale, and that's what you focus on.
Yeah, it did look like could be a market there for watches or something.
Yeah, and you could just smurf all the watch eBay and just kind of, I would say, in your case, like when you already have a full-time job or you're not really looking to make this maybe full-time, it's just something you like doing.
Right.
Think about like specializing in, like you said, like maybe watches. Like, okay, like I'm going to buy all, old school calculator watches, like Casio calculator watches, from like the 80s, because they're coming back in style, and I'm just going to start like smurfing them. I like them. I like looking for them. And like I'm going to have this huge selection of them. They're cheap money to buy, but like I can turn and burn each one of them for, make $15 on it. It doesn't take up a lot of space, and it's not a big deal, and then start kind of spreading out from there. But, just like I'd say space is a constraint starting off, and that would be a good way to do is maybe just look at small things that you can turn and that you're interested in. Like find something you really are interested in, because then you're going to enjoy like looking for it, right? Like the treasure hunt's on, right? Like, hey.
Yeah, exactly. Now, I guess this idea of space, it leads me to my another question that I've been thinking about, and that is like when I have larger items, I don't necessarily always want to be forced to wait until someone local is able to buy it.
Yeah.
And so like the two things that recently came to mind, I did eventually find local buyers, but the two items that I had that were kind of tricky were the dresser and the wood chipper, which was like a pretty bulky item. And I kind of wanted to sell it on eBay, but I didn't. It seemed like there would be a restriction on shipping. So do you have any recommendations for how I would go about that for selling those larger items? Yeah,
the first thing, or there's two things that come to mind really. One is that you can sell it on eBay and say, you're going to freight ship it or whatever. There's three real things. So the price is going to kind of be a factor in that of how much it's worth and that sort of thing. So one, like you can sell it and you can have someone or a company kind of like UShip, which UShip in America here is a website that connects like sellers of stuff with independent transportation guys. So like people that, maybe a guy that has a truck and a trailer or a cargo van. And so they're always out driving around all over the country. And this is like one big load board that you set up your thing on. You set the price, or you do like a reverse bid thing to where the providers compete to give you the cheapest price on shipping something or transporting something. So they ship animals. They ship, that people do moves like, apartment moves on this thing. They ship a jacuzzi on there. They'll ship equipment, whatever. Like you can ship just about anything. And, a guy in a pickup truck or a cargo van shows up, you load it in there, he takes it, gets to the people on the other side, and then, you pay them when it delivers. So they've got a pretty good system there. So that's something, and the price is pretty variable. It's hard to pinpoint what the price is because it is like a bidding situation, but it's a way of like getting it somewhere without having to do a whole lot of like packing and, wrapping and all that, They would come to your house or apartment and grab it and go, right?
Yeah.
The other thing is like you could do a freight quote and send it on a pallet to somebody. It's typically better to ship. It's cheaper and usually less friction to send to a commercial business. So that would require you like finding a pallet and having it ready for a truck, like a semi truck to basically come and pick up, or, putting it on the pallet, wrapping and packing it, strapping it down, and then delivering it to a trucking terminal that's nearby, where you live. But that would require a truck or, whatever, or you pay somebody, to do it for you.
So when you do those freight shipping, can you just take it to the freight company and they'll weigh it and tell you the price, or do you have to figure out all the like dimensions and weight in advance?
So a lot of my stuff I already kind of know, and here I have a warehouse and we have forklift and scales and all that stuff. So we do all that beforehand, but typically you can get a quote just by ballparking it, right? So you can say, all right, I think this thing's about 150 pounds, with the pallet and everything.
Yeah.
And these are roughly the dimensions. It's going to be 48 by 40 by 48. And I need it to go from this zip code to that zip code. You'll have a pretty good idea of what it costs. Example, I'm shipping something from Tampa today. I paid a guy $100 to go pick it up and take it to the trucking terminal for me because the guy that was selling it didn't have a truck or whatever. So I found a guy on Craigslist. He picked it up. He took it over to the trucking terminal. I'd already, sent them the paperwork for the trucking company. It was $125. For the shipping part of it. So it's $125 to go from Tampa to Atlanta here because it's going from the trucking company's dock to my dock and forklift. So that's pretty much the cheapest you can go. If you start adding like lift gates onto the trucks, it starts getting a little bit, they add $75 or whatever. But the other thing you can do, like depending on your area, like there's a lot of third-party logistics companies that, you would maybe solve like an inventory issue for you too. Like a lot of them will charge you by the space or the item, and they will actually, it's probably ahead of where you're at right now, but just to think about it, like you can store your inventory with them and they charge you either by the pallet or by the box or whatever, and they'll actually take the item out of the box, package it, and ship it to your customer for you. And so you just basically send them the order when you get it, and then they do all the work. They charge you a fee for all those touch points, but that's something you could run from your apartment and never have to hold a bit of the inventory. It's better for like new items or stuff that you're sourcing and you have like, all right, I've got 300 of these items that I bought, or, I'm importing and then putting them on Amazon and I'm selling them one at a time. Like if you don't want to do that one at a time handling, like there's companies out there that'll do it. You just have to make sure that the money's right, that you're making enough on it to be able to pay them and have them take care of it.
And that's the key bit. That is absolutely the key bit, Stephen, is the amount of money you're making on these things. Because if you're talking about logistics costs of $100 or picking it up for this or selling it for that, but you're only making $50 on the item, it's just not worth it. So we've got to pay big attention to the amount of money there that is for transport. My dad used to buy and sell T-shirts and different sports equipment. And a couple of times that really hurt him because he would think, oh, I'm buying this for 50 cents per T-shirt and I'm selling it for $1 T-shirt. But he didn't realize that shipping costs 75 cents a T-shirt. And that's when you can start losing money on these things very quickly.
Oh, yeah. You definitely have to build that in. And that's where, I think the 2X, 3X, my rule is like 3X with buying something because I say, okay, if I buy it for 100, by the time I pay any kind of marketing fees, whether you put it on eBay or something else, and you pay the shipping, it starts adding up pretty quick, depending on the size of it. The bigger the size, the more it costs to ship. So now you've got $50 or $60 in marketing and shipping and all that, packaging cost. And then so now you're clearing $100 150, 140, 130, whatever. So, that's where, you're definitely going to sell it quicker, the bigger market, buy local, sell global. It's kind of what is a good, mantra that we kind of think about. You buy it locally and turn around, put it on the worldwide market on eBay or whatever, and on Amazon, and you have a better chance of selling it quicker. But the shipping is the big deal. And I would suggest like digging into the Postal Service and like how to ship smaller stuff. For a lot of years, I spent a lot more money than I probably should have, so the smaller the stuff you're selling, you need to get more familiar with the post office because they're typically the low cost shipper.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I would suggest let's say that you want to focus in on something if you want to. If there's something you're already interested in, focus down on that. Because what I found is like I do a little bit of scattered buying too, like you're talking about, and it's okay. And sometimes it's just my eye will catch something and I'll do a good deal on it. But I hear people say a lot like the real estate industry, and there's a lot of similarities to what you're doing in that. But they'll say, "Oh, I got to find a deal," or "This is a deal." Deals aren't really found. Opportunities are found, right? So you found an opportunity of a motivated seller, or somebody's in a bind, they got to get rid of stuff quick, or there's a divorce, or there's some sort of change that's happening, and you're there at the right time. That's an opportunity. And once you find an opportunity, then you can make a deal. But you don't find a deal. Sometimes you have to know the value of what you're looking at in order to recognize that it's an opportunity. Because you may say, like, "Oh, that thing's really cheap, but it's a piece of garbage," or it's like it's a model number that sucked and it's the wrong one, and you're thinking you're getting a deal, but you don't know that that's like the one nobody wants anymore. Like you really have to like know the values of the stuff you're looking at, and that's where like specialization kind of comes into focus. And then once you like know the values, you can see immediately an opportunity and snap that thing up and make a deal on it. I do a lot of different medical equipment, and I just know all the values of everything because I've sold them over and over again. I know which models sell, which ones don't, all that sort of stuff. So like I can go around and just pick the bargains, which a novice wouldn't be able to do that. Like they wouldn't know what to buy. I've seen people like buy a bunch of stuff from auctions thinking they're getting stuff, and then end up with a storage unit full of junk. So but it takes time, right? And sometimes it takes like buying a load of unknown stuff that you don't know, but you just get it really cheap, and then you discover like what's a hot seller, right? And then once you kind of get in, you start learning, selling it, like then you start seeing like, oh, like these are the things that sell hot. Like I'm going to keep looking for those.
Do you have any good strategies for like you get a load of like unknown stuff that you don't have any price points on? Do you then just go on eBay and start looking, see what other people price them at?
Yeah, I mean, that's what you kind of have to do, like see what they've sold for. Example, like I found a guy that was like, he was a dealer of certain kind of like power equipment, like lawn type equipment up in, I think it was Massachusetts or something. And he was a dealer at some point and closed his store down. He had all these old parts, like Briggs and Stratton parts, all these kind of parts like left over. And they were in his basement. He's like, "Man, I got to get this stuff out of my basement. Like, it's just been there too long." And I'm like, "Moving on, man. I'm moving on." So he's like, "I'll sell you all this stuff for $1,000 or whatever." And I'm like, I kind of blindly went into it. I'd never bought that stuff before. Didn't know. Ended up being like 2 pallets worth of stuff. We shipped it down, had a couple $100 in shipping, and we just had to dig through it. And it was very time consuming, but they're really small items. And we dug through it, and like, there was a lot of parts that were $20 and $30 a piece in there, and then there was some that were too cheap, and we kind of throw those to the side. But overall, like it built out, and it was probably worth $5,000 in parts that we're still selling today. Like as we've added more deals like that, we've got a pretty good inventory of those kind of parts that they're just small items they sell here and there pretty regularly. But now that we know like which ones sell and which one don't, like that, we can keep an eye out for those and step aside of the ones that we know are going to, like seals and gaskets, like they don't sell, or they're not worth selling. They're too cheap. So yeah, it's like stuff like that. Sometimes you just have to take a chance and roll some money into something, and then you'll learn it real quick once you put your money on it. I've always found that, like, whether it's the stock market or anything, like, it's like, oh, you put a little money behind something, like, it's funny how your brain focuses on it, and you learn it real quick.
Yeah, and that's the taking action piece. That's definitely the taking action piece, because you can research for a long, long time, but when you actually get in and do a deal and buy something and then try and sell it, That's where the learning happens from the real action. And anyone is a good spectator on the sidelines. Anyone can spot a good deal. But when you're actually trying to do it. So I guess, Stephen, question for you, and I've got an answer to this as well, I think. How do you spot a good opportunity?
Well, there's a little bit of repetition and kind of gut in it. A lot of it's like after doing it for a long time, you just have an eye for something like, hey, if I like this thing, I know somebody else is going to like it because I'm not an anomaly. I'm not a man on an island here. Like if I think that's cool or if I could use that and it would work for me, like it's got to work for other people. And so that's kind of, part of it. A lot of it's recognizing opportunity. It's tough. That's part of where the art is, and it's different for everybody. So that's really one of the hard parts of it. So a lot of times trying to be in the right place at the right time is sometimes the biggest factor. Being there where the change is.
Being where the change is and having your eyes open to the opportunities. I remember when I first started working with my dad when he was in the sportswear many, many years ago, he was flying to Germany to buy Adidas and he wanted to go and buy clothing, T-shirts, different things. So we went to the cellar, we were looking around the place and I spotted on the wall a new type of soccer boot, a football boot. It was called the Adidas Predator. It was brand new out at that point in England. But for whatever reason, in Germany where we'd gone, they weren't selling and they had a load to clear. And I picked it up and asked how much it was. And the guy had 2,000 pairs and he wanted £12.50 for them. And I just knew I'd seen them in England in the stores for 70.
Yeah.
I knew there was money. I just knew it.
No brainer.
And I felt it. And I said to my dad, we've got to buy these. He was nervous. So he ended up taking a risk and he bought 1,000 pairs of them. And we made a couple of calls on the way home from Germany and we got someone to buy the whole 1,000 pairs for £25. So we doubled our money without, it was the first call pretty much. So we rung the guy in Germany and said, actually, we'll take all 2,000.
Yeah.
And he shipped them all over and it was one of the best deals.
If he was smart, he would have raised the price.
Yeah, well, he did for the second 1,000.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But it's just spotting those things. So you get an inherent feeling that I know this is worth more. I've seen it in the stores. I know people are wearing it. I know it's in demand. That's knowing your
values. That's knowing your value. Like that's part of it. Like knowing your value first in order to recognize the opportunity. So that's exactly what you did. So that was the key. And then you did a deal, right? Like so.
Well, I think the key bit was my dad had contacts in the industry who were buyers and he knew who to ring to sell it.
Yeah.
And he made the call
true.
And he sold it. That was
critical. Even if he would have been a blind squirrel though, he could have probably gotten it and found somebody, put it out there. Somebody would have found it, without being professional at it. He could have also, he would have called around soon enough and gotten, but he may not got the initial opportunity to go over there and talk to this fella. So, the network is a big factor of it. And I'll say too, like, I don't necessarily like buying off of the platforms. I like selling on them, but like the way I look at it is like, if someone already is putting it on the platform, they already want to sell it. Like I try to find people that don't know they want to sell something. I find it in someone's, drive by, they got a bunch of garbage in their, looks like in their garage. Like, hey, you want to sell anything? And then they're, oh yeah, well, what about this, and this? And then you're finding it at the source before there's other competition out there because it helps you in negotiating. If you're negotiating against yourself, you're the only one there, you're going to get a way better deal than like if he's got 10 people emailing him on Craigslist or whatever, trying to buy it. Like you get no bargain there. And they figure out pretty quick if they're getting 10 emails, people wanting to buy it, like they got it priced too low. So I try to go for things that like aren't already for sale and try to convince people to sell them, or it's minuscule. You're at a garage sale or you're, at a warehouse sale or, whatever that isn't online. Like no one else sees it. And then you buy it, turn around, sell it, put it out there in a more public way and find it.
So that's a tough thing to do, Stephen, to drive up to someone's house and go, I see you've got a lot of stuff in your garage. Do you want to sell anything? Like that's have you actually done that?
Oh my God, my whole life I've done it. Like my dad would embarrass my dad would embarrass us so horribly, like as a kid, but it was training, right? Like you drive by, he'd see somebody have like an old car in their backyard or in their barn, and he would say, like, he'd knock right on their front door. And before you know it, like, oh yeah, I got that. I got 3 more in the back, back in the woods there. And, and then like, boom, you're on a honey hole. And then like they're friends to this day, it's like, it's bizarre. But yeah, people like, sometimes you'll get shooed away, but for the most part, like people don't always knock on your door looking to give you money. Most people don't, you know what I mean? Like most people aren't going to like shoo you away. Like, oh no, we don't like money here. We don't want any of yours. Like they're going to say, sure, come on in. How much money do you have?
What else can we sell you?
Yeah.
You want this lamp? Here, take this lamp.
Because people start looking around real quick, looking, oh, what haven't I touched in a while? What can I get rid of?
To get rid of stuff. She's all about that.
Yeah. So finding the opportunities like that, that's the hard part. Because once you find it, you can always sell it. Risk is overpaying for an asset, right? So like if you buy something dirt cheap, like the risk is extremely low. So you buy stuff dirt cheap, and that's where you learn. You're getting crazy bargains on stuff. And my dad would always he got into farm equipment for a while. He really learned all about these antique tractors and all this stuff. And he'd go and he'd drive around like the rural areas of the state, and they would buy, a tractor with like all the implements that go with it. I don't even know what they are, hairs and the plows and the hay cutters. I don't know what all that stuff is, but he would buy everything for like $1,500 for the whole shoot match. And then he'd sell all the implements off to people because he didn't really want, he just wanted the tractor. He'd sell all the implements off and make $500 or $1,000 on the whole deal. And he got to keep the tractor. So he ended up with like 20 or 30 tractors, because like how many tractors can you have when you're getting them basically for free?
What can you do with the tractors? You can only ride one at once at that point.
Well, yeah, I mean, he'd fix one up every once in a while, and then he'd sell it for this and that. Like, so I don't know how he still has them stashed somewhere. I don't even know where they're at, but that concept of like looking for inventory is like, for instance, I found these items close by to my office. It was like a dump hopper that goes on a forklift, and you can dump scrap metal or trash or whatever out of it easily with a forklift. So the guy had it close by. He had 2 of them. They were priced really nice. Instead of buying just one, I really only needed one. I didn't even need one really, but I bought it and went ahead and bought the other one because why not? Like they're cheap. I know they're underpriced. I'm gonna turn around and resell it. Ended up turning around, did some trade and stuff for it, but basically traded the $300 dumper for a $1,500 trailer. And so, yeah, if you can buy more than one, do it, and sell it and get yours for free. Then you can have lots of stuff.
Yeah. Well, I think the minimalists would have something against getting lots of stuff, but when it's useful, definitely. So, Andrew, where are you going with this?
So right now it's still just a side hustle. I love just fixing stuff up. I'm not as good at the selling part, so maybe that's the takeaway here. I enjoy the aspect of finding things that are kind of in disrepair and restoring them to their original purpose, and I get a lot of fulfillment out of that. So I think I could see myself at some point with some sort of repair shop, or just kind of like a little setup where people could bring in their junk or whatever they got, and restoring it would be pretty satisfying to me. I don't know if it'll ever be a full-time thing though.
So you like the repair aspect of it more, or do you like the turning something into cash that like wasn't?
I would say they're both pretty rewarding, but at its heart, well, I like repairing stuff more, but I just don't really have the time for it right now. So
yeah, that's the time consuming part of the whole thing.
Exactly. I like figuring out what's wrong with it and what it needs to be fixed again. But I just in my small little place without a real true workshop, it's kind of hard to focus on that. So I've been enjoying learning more about like the selling aspect of it, and seeing what about an item makes somebody want it or desire it, and just how to appeal to a larger audience.
I mean, that's something you could get around. The time consuming part of the repair is like, for example, let's say you got into watches, right? And specific ones, and like, which ones that you could learn which ones started, selling and was really marketable and desirable. You could hunt those out. A lot of other people are probably going to be hunting them out. So you set up your ways of finding them, and then you would find somebody that repairs them, or that is a part-time watch repair guy or whatever. And, you'd buy it, send it directly to them, have them check it out, and then ship it to you. and then you would have a good working item that you could turn around and sell, wouldn't take up a lot of room, that sort of thing. So you would outsource the heavier repair maybe to someone else, or you'd get it in, check it out if it was beyond your scope of fixing it, or was a more timely repair. You kick it to somebody else, make sure that they could repair it and turn around and resell it.
How do you go about finding those type connections? You just like look for people in your area, or do you?
Yeah, I mean, you could talk to people in the area, like sometimes just a word of mouth thing, but sometimes just be going to a shop, go to a shop that's nearby you and talk to the guy that runs it or gal that runs it. But, like there's people that specialize in doing lots of different repairs, electronics repair guys. Like I've got a friend of mine that this guy can repair anything electronic. And so you have to find that person, or those people that you can kind of go to for these different things to add value and make your life easier on the back end. Or you sell stuff as is, and you just turn and burn it a lot quicker, and you're going to get lower prices. But it's kind of whatever you're into. But I would try to, it's a tough thing, but look for something that's kind of high value but smaller in scale, and all you do is hunt those things out. Maybe you only sell 10 a year, but maybe they're $500 a piece. Maybe it's a special carburetor on an engine that like they don't make anymore, and they're on a certain snowmobile or whatever, or a jet ski or something. And like you hunt out those, people are putting them on Craigslist for junk or whatever, and you find them, you turn around, buy them and sell them. Like whatever it is that you just have to kind of dig into it and want to spend your time hunting them. Yeah.
Do you do a lot of stuff like that?
My problem is like I have to find something valuable enough to really make it worth my while to do it. It's like I've got to be buying and selling things that are in the thousands, because I've got a team of people I got to keep employed, and like a shop and expenses and all that stuff. So it's a little different for me when you're just starting out. Like anybody can do it, right? Like you could go. I tell people like you could make a lot of extra money going to your 5 closest neighbors that live next to you and say, "Hey, I'm in the selling business. Like, do you have anything in your house that you want to get rid of? We'll split it 50-50, after expenses, and I'll do all the work and, take all the emails and do the shipping and all that stuff." Believe me, there's a fortune in your 5 of your neighbors, because everyone's got stuff. Oh, I've got old this, I don't use anymore, an old watch. I've got an old pair of boots or whatever, like everyone's got garbage in their house and they want to get out of their life, and they just don't want to take the time or whatever. You go to them, knock on the door, form a relationship with them, and you do the picturing. When it sells, you just go knock on the door. Hey, I sold it for this. Like, I need to get it and pack it up. Boom, you sell it. I mean, that's like an easy way to start a business. Anybody can do it,
I love that. I feel like there's so much opportunity waiting all around us. And I think the key thing I've taken away from this episode is spotting opportunities. And Andrew's been spotting opportunities, adding value, selling it, and making some dollars. Stephen, you seem to be the king of spotting opportunities everywhere you walk. And that seems to be the key, is finding an opportunity where you can add value, sell it for more than you got it, maybe 2 or 3 times, and start selling.
Yeah, and I'm still an amateur. I've only been doing it for 15 years. I'm still an amateur. But I think Andrew's like, he's got the formula, right? Like he's rinse and repeat. Keep doing the same thing. Like buy it, turn around, sell it. Fix it, sell it. Sometimes you're going to have to put a little extra work. I
must be less than a novice then. Like,
no, dude. I mean, that's the thing. You never stop learning, though. I mean, I'm still getting stuff in sometimes that like I have no idea what it is. But it's like Christmas. Every time you get a load of stuff and you're like, ooh, what's in this one? You start tearing through it, checking prices. All right, what is this? And you get little surprises. So like you never stop learning, because there's so much stuff out there. The world is unlimited in the amount of products and items out there. Like, do you know the pricing and availability of Caterpillar heavy equipment parts? Like, no, like, but if you're in that business, like, how much a water pump on an excavator costs. Like, I have no idea, but like, you can never know everything. Right. So you're always learning in this kind of game.
So one of the deals my dad did, which I was always impressed by, in retail shops, when someone buys something and there's something wrong with it and they take it back, do you ever wonder where those went, Andrew?
Occasionally, I did. Well, there is a store I know that like open box liquidators near me, where like the store will collect old junk stuff, and it just because it's like been opened already. So I guess that's one option.
My dad found a retailer that didn't know what to do with this stuff, and he basically did a deal with them to buy it by the box. So this retailer was a big sportswear store. The stuff that was returned by customers just got stuck in boxes. The boxes would be filled up, and my dad would buy it for £7 a box, so $10 a box. And we would get this box of stuff back, and you would never know what's in it. You wouldn't have a clue. Sometimes you get boxes that had smelly trainers in there, and you're like, what am I going to do with that? And you just throw them in the bin. One of the boxes was filled with tents, and there was at least 15 tents, all with small defects, but one had a tent pole missing. So we brought a spare tent pole, and you've got a £200 tent. And there was 15 of these things in that one box that we paid £7 for. And it was unbelievable. Every box had different stuff. Some had rackets that were broken. You couldn't do anything with those. One box we found samples in, so it was all brand new Nike sportswear. We totaled up the retail price, and it was like £700 or £800, so about $1,000 worth of sportswear in this one box. It was like Christmas every time we got a delivery. You never knew what was going to be in there. And I think it's unbelievable what you can find out there. The key is looking for opportunities, knowing that there's someone out there that will find value in it, and being able to sell it on when you get it. And I think what you've done is made an incredible start to trading, doing deals, and getting going. The question is, where could you go with this? Where could you go? And the answer is the sky's the limit if you want to. Stephen's proved you can build an incredible business by buying and selling items. If you haven't listened to his episode yet, go back one episode, listen to Stephen's first episode, and his first deal is phenomenal. He got the money before he sold it, which I love. You know we're a big fan of that on this show, Andrew. So what are you inspired to do next? What have you taken away from this? What are you going to go and do?
Yeah, well, I think the next thing I want to do is probably get more comfortable with the idea of just kind of walking up to people's places and seeing what I can get for free, like around local, without having to, use gas money or like lots of effort in trying to get a hold of the item. Where if I could just like do it more local, even more than I have been, that would be really cool. So I liked that idea a lot.
I think that's one of my biggest takeaways from this episode, because I don't know if I'd have the guts to do it, Andrew, to do what Stephen does and just walk up to the house. But he made an incredible point. Why would they turn you? They're not going to be angry with you. I'm here to give you money.
Yeah, exactly.
Go away.
That's kind of what I was saying. I was like, yeah, I guess I had never framed the idea like that before. Everybody likes an opportunity.
Everyone likes an opportunity. So to the people who are listening to the show today, thank you for tuning in. What Andrew, I, and Stephen would love you to take away from this is that there is opportunity everywhere. What you need to do is spot the opportunity, see who you can sell it to, have a go at this stuff, buy it for cheap or get it for free, and see if you can build a business on the side. The key is taking action, asking brave questions, and making sales. And that is what will help you to make progress. Thanks for listening to The Rebel Entrepreneur. Andrew, thank you for coming on the show. Stephen, thank you for coming on the show. Let us know how you get on. Good luck. Go sell. Have fun. You can have any life you want to. Choose to build something cool. Choose to take action. Choose to work to make your dreams become reality. Stand out. Be different. Be yourself. Be a rebel entrepreneur.